Logan Paul made 5 critical mistakes in his response to CoffeeZilla video. Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, we're going to break down all 5 of the critical mistakes that Logan Paul made. Number 1, by far, the biggest internet mistake that you could possibly make is something that Logan Paul should have known very clearly about from back in the days of H3H3 Ethan and Hila Klein versus Matt Haas. You do not threaten a lawsuit. When Matt Haas threatened and eventually filed a lawsuit against the Kleins, Matt Haas was sent to obscurity, and the Kleins were promoted to virality. Now, one exists on social media and one does not. The Kleins succeeded. Not only did they win the lawsuit for basically having made a video against Matt Haas, criticizing Matt Haas, and Matt Haas got his feelings hurt, but the internet absolutely hated Matt Haas for threatening and eventually filing a lawsuit, because lawsuits shut down discussion. And unfortunately, that's exactly what Logan Paul is threatening to do here.
You still published a defamatory hit piece fully knowing I was innocent just so you could enrich yourself in your $10 million studio. Sharp, but deeply unethical, dangerously misleading, and illegal. I suggest you use the money you got from pumping your Patreon to hire a good lawyer. You're gonna need it, and I'll see you in court.
He is threatening CoffeeZilla with a lawsuit, which removes discussion and perspective from the internet, because after all, what is the first thing lawyers tell everyone to do? Stop talking. And that is what the internet hates. Look, whether you are right or wrong on the internet wants to hear everybody's perspective. And the cool thing is, they'll give you an opportunity to share your side. But when you threaten the other side by threatening to shut them down and to financially ruin them, whether or not those allegations are true or not, what you do is you create what the internet hates. A David versus Goliath situation, where the impression is some larger, wealthier individual tries to step on a smaller person, the common man looking out for everybody else simply by asking questions and presenting challenging information and perspective. That's what the internet wants. The internet wants challenging information and perspective. I personally believe that's why people watch my videos on my channel, is if I'm not providing them creative perspective, then they don't come back, and they shouldn't. But the last thing you should do is threaten to shut down your opposition. That is dangerous. The internet hates that and ends up making people hate the threatener, in this case Logan Paul, even more. And you have to be real with yourself. If you think you will win in court, you're kidding yourself, Logan Paul. Nobody wins in court, other than the attorneys. See, because usually what happens when you go to court, especially for defamation lawsuits, is you'll end up going through 2 to 3 years of hell, depositions, evidence prep, and a lot of phone calls and Zoom meetings, when the reality is you should actually be focused on providing the product that you promised to provide. CoffeeZilla. I mean, CryptoZoo. But yet again, you've missed deadlines because you're too busy making a non-apology video. And see, unfortunately, by threatening a lawsuit, you make more than just one big mistake. You create a second massive mistake. You remove your ability to actually take accountability. That's right. When you threaten a lawsuit, it actually means maybe you're really gearing up to file a lawsuit. And what you can't do if you're about to go to court is actually take accountability, because that would just weaken your case in court. But that's why everybody hates court, because people don't get together and be like, hey man, I effed up here. And then the other side's supposed to be like, yeah man, you know, I effed up over here too. Like, both sides can have some fault, but when you go to court, nobody takes any accountability, because that would just weaken your legal case. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you hypothetically had a couple drinks, you waited a few hours, but you ended up getting pulled over and charged with a DUI. Because even though you felt you were completely under the limit, you still gave some reasonable suspicion that you were potentially under the influence. And when you were offered a breathalyzer, you refused it because 10 years ago you were told to never use the rigged police breathalyzers because you'll always lose, and the best way to prove your innocence is having no evidence at all. And now people are demanding answers for your behavior, and you have 2 choices. The best internet choice is number 1, Logan Paul, take note. You take responsibility. You vow to never drink and drive again, or at least you vow to set safeguards to make sure that people around you are safe. In the case of DUI, if you drink, you wait a substantial amount of time or just have a designated driver, take an Uber, right? In the case of Logan Paul, you take responsibility for having effed up on the delays for CryptoZoo. You promise to find better people, you promise to find better engineers, and you promise to make it right to your audience. You learn from your mistakes, you admit your mistakes, and you move on, you become a better man, and you thank CoffeeZilla for bringing attention to your F-up. Because everybody makes mistakes, that's humanity. But being a real man means standing up and saying, the buck stops with me. That would be the right choice. The problem is, if you plan to go to court, you can't do any of that because you actually weaken your ability to win in court by taking accountability. So you actually, by A, threatening a lawsuit, you make everybody hate you because you're trying to silence the other person. And number two, you're gonna go to court, which means you can't take accountability, which then also makes people think you're just a pompous asshole who takes zero accountability. And that's a problem, because after all, if you trusted a con man and you got fooled, the buck stops with you. It's the same thing like with the FTX debacle. A lot of creators, myself included, ended up getting fooled by FTX. But guess what? A lot of creators, while they've stuck their heads in the sand regarding FTX, I've actually come out publicly to reveal how much I was paid by FTX, it's about $188,000, how much they still owe me, about $70,000, how it represented less than 3% of my income in 2022, and I admit I effed up. Look, Sam Bankman-Fried was a cluster F of a fraud, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't take your own accountability, and I admit I effed up, and I apologize to my audience. That, in my opinion, is taking accountability. I hate it. I make a lot of mistakes. It sucks, but it's the right thing to do because the reality is your goal in life is to go through life and do more good than you do bad. Unfortunately, the more good you try to do, the more mistakes you make along the way. But you have to learn from those and make sure you don't repeat those same mistakes. Logan Paul, you should take note. It's okay to make mistakes. I'm a creator as well. I F up as well, but you have to take accountability. And that's not what Logan Paul does. Instead, he points the finger.
And I know what you're thinking. What type of idiot would work with an unsavory individual like Zach Kelling? I guess that's what I get for trusting the team that I relied on to vet and manage Eddie's hiring process, who has turned out to be a professional con man that I have since learned fooled billionaires, the Mormon Church, the owner of the New York Yankees, and now me.
Number three, another thing that's a really bad idea is mocking your critic. This reminds me of Donald Trump mocking somebody with, the ailment where kind of your arms and your face kind of, have a little bit of a twitch. Donald Trump got reamed for mocking a critic and reporter for, well, the individual's potentially uncontrolled bodily behavior. Mocking is a really bad idea, and unfortunately, that's exactly what Logan Paul did in this video multiple times.
You're kidding! You can't hatch?
You're kidding! You can't hatch?
You can't hatch?
Additionally, Logan Paul's fourth mistake was he argues that CoffeeZilla is using the name Logan Paul for money and views and pumping CoffeeZilla's Patreon. But I hate to say it, Logan Paul, all this falls on its face when you invite CoffeeZilla on your podcast, which somewhat makes it seem like you're begging CoffeeZilla to come on your podcast, but you also say you won't go on his.
Lastly, CoffeeZilla, I now know your motives with this. Clout and money, good for you, but also you're slimy as f. So I'm not gonna come on any of your podcasts. If you wanna come on Impulsive and talk about this, that's fine. You've denied my invitation multiple times. You're still invited. It can be a one-on-one. If not, we're gonna handle this ourselves while we continue to build CryptoZoo, and I'll see you in court.
That kind of implies, whether it's true or not, that you're being selfish and you want the views from the drama, not CoffeeZilla. Whew. Number 5, hate to say it, but you've got to remember this. When you start saying other people are defaming you for having an opinion, you better be pretty dang sure that what they're saying is not just an opinion and is actually an untrue fact. That is really difficult to prove in court because here's the reality. Look, I make mostly finance videos, and when I make the right call, people leave me nice comments. I get really happy about that. I feel great. My day is happy. When I F up and I make the wrong decision or I make the wrong call, I get called a clown and I get made fun of. That's not defamatory, that's someone else's opinion. When you F up, you get called out. It's simple. Now, you have to prove, if you want to prove defamation, you have to prove that what somebody else is saying is not only not just damaging to you, but you also have to prove that what somebody else is saying is untrue. But what if that is truly someone's opinion? It's really difficult to argue defamation and actually win defamation in court because the ultimate defense to defamation is the truth. And if someone saying something that's an opinion is what they truly feel, then that individual might not have liability, and CoffeeZilla could be protected by journalistic privileges for simply airing the opinion of others to promote discourse and a call for transparency and sharing opinion. So, Logan Paul, here, chasing defamation or alleging defamation is nearly a career-ending journey of hate and animosity that you're seeking to embark on. And it's probably career-ending, but then again, after I saw you in a Japanese forest and somehow you survived that one, let's just say, I think it's too soon to say any career is over, but it certainly didn't get helped.